Hey, what's up YouTube, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. Today, I'm going to be discussing my opinions on the Genshin Impact tier list of the 2.2 meta. This tier list will be hyper-focused on best units to build if you want to clear Spiral Abyss floor 12. This tier list is going to be geared towards free-to-play players and low spenders because that is the area of expertise I mostly specialize in. Now, of course, most of this information is still going to be applicable to whales and high spenders. I want you guys to know I'm doing this video unscripted, so it's not going to be as refined and polished as many of my other videos, but I thought doing the entire video in a single take would give you my most truthful thoughts on all these characters. And with that, let's get on into the tier list. If you got any differing opinions, make sure to leave them in the comment section down below. First, let's start the tier list off with Albedo. I think Albedo is a strong A tier option. He's great in the Spiral Abyss. He is low investment and high damage output. Next, we got Aloy. I don't think Aloy is a good unit and worth investing in. You also can't get any of her constellations, so there is no chance that she is getting any better. Next, we have Amber. I think Amber you should also stay away from. She has been infamous as one of the worst characters in Genshin Impact. Next, we got Barbara. I think Barbara is kind of poop, but she is slightly useful in the early game. I think Barbara carried me through the early game personally because of her high healing, but in the end, that's all she does. Her constellations only give her healing, and her C6 revives the character, but in the end, all she does is healing. There's a certain point in Genshin where you don't need any more healing, and any extra healing is just being wasted. I think Beidou is great as a B tier option. She is well-rounded in the support and DPS category and could be used for either role. I like to use her for her support capabilities with the Child Taser team comp, but can be used as a main DPS with Fischl. The only downside I see in Beidou, energy burst cost is a cost of 80, so it's quite high. Next, we got Bennett. Bennett is a god tier of a unit. He can be used to generate energy particles. He can heal your party just enough to where they're about max HP, and all the while, he's giving your entire party an attack buff. Next, we got Changyan. I think Changyan is a good unit if you want to run him in the national team comp. But other than that, I see him in the Diluc team comp a lot. But other than that, I don't think he really has much synergy in other team comps. He has an ability to turn all attacks inside his AoE into cryo damage. And for me, that does not seem as useful as some of the other characters that I could rather have in my team comp. Next, we got Diluc. I think Diluc is a strong character paired with Changyan, but in the overall meta, he has fallen off due to being power crept in the beginning of the game. Next, we got Diona. I think Diona is a solid character to use in the Spiral Abyss as a support. She's great at healing, and she can shield, which can be used to replace Zhongli if you don't have it. Next, we got Eula. I think Eula is a good physical DPS, which can be used in the Spiral Abyss. It is indeed hard. I don't know much about Eula, so I'm going to keep her in the A tier, and maybe if I pull her in the next banner, I can make a guide about her and maybe move her up in the tier list. Next, we got Fischl. Fischl is a great support unit. She easily generates energy particles for most of the Electro DPSs or other DPSs in which she is in the team comp. Next, we got Ganyu. Ganyu is an amazing beast of a DPS. She does crazy amounts of damage, all while having a support kit. Her ultimate ability basically applies cryo to all enemies around her. This can be used to proc certain elemental reactions like freeze or melt, and can be very useful in the Spiral Abyss. Next, we got Hu Tao. I think Hu Tao is another S tier unit. Her damage output is amazing, and she's of the power element, which means she can proc Vaporize, and probably her best partner is with Xingqiu. Next, we got Jean. I think Jean is a great support healing unit, probably the second best after Bennett. Her scalings are amazing, and she has a lot of base HP and a base attack. So if you want to use her as a physical or attack percent DPS, she's great as that too. Next, we got Kazuha. I think Kazuha is a great S tier support. You stack Elemental Master on him, and you can take full effect of the Viridescent set. He can also swirl enemies and suck them in at the same time, so it's easier for your main DPSs to attack the enemies all at once. Next, we got Kaya. Kaya has been growing in the meta recently, but as of now, I think he's a solid C tier option. He has a low elemental cooldown on his skill, and his burst can be quite useful to other higher DPSs and supports. Next, we got Ayaka. I think Ayaka is a good A tier option. She's great as a sub DPS and great at applying cryo to enemies around her. Her ultimate ability does a lot of damage, and its scaling is pretty high. Keqing, like Diluc, has fallen off in the meta. She was once one of the main 5-star DPSs in the beginning of the game, but over time has been power crept by new 4-star and 5-star units. Klee is also another unit that's been power crept. Her kit is a bit outdated, but the DPS output is just as fine as the others. Kujo Sara, I think, is a D tier option. Her attack buff is extremely hard to pull off, and it's really clunky. I just don't think she's viable in any other position. Lisa, I don't think is viable in any other position, much like Kujo Sara. She's a little bit clunky with the charging of her E, so you mostly use her for her ultimate and debuffing abilities, but even then, her ultimate ability costs a lot of energy. I think Ball easily replaced Lisa as the Electro support role. Next, we got Mona. I think Mona is a great 5-star support. She's great at applying Hydro to enemies around her, and her burst increases the damage of all other party units. Next, we got Ningguang. I think Ningguang is an average DPS unit, although using her in the Spiral Abyss may prove to be quite challenging because she's competing with other 5-star DPSs. The 4-star Ningguang's DPS output just does not compare to the other higher ranked 5-star DPSs. Next, we got Noelle, and for me, Noelle is in this challenging spot. Noelle's skill gives her a shield, which makes her sound like a support. Her burst also heals her, and her auto attacks heal her, but she scales off a defense percent, which makes her sound like a sort of a DPS and a healer. For me, she's just too much of every single class, and yet fails to provide on every other class. Next, we got Qiqi. I think Qiqi is another one of those healers that overheal on other units. When she overheals, we lose on effective healing, and just in the current meta, Qiqi is not viable. Next, we got Ball. I think Ball is a great S tier pick. Her burst does tons of damage, and she easily builds energy recharge particles for all other party units. Next, we got Razor. Razor is a 4-star DPS, 4-star physical DPS, but I feel like he just underperforms compared to all the other characters ranked above. Next, we got Rosaria. I think Rosaria is a good physical damage support. She's also great in other national team comps and can be widely used with in conjunction with the national team comp members. I think Kokomi is also another one of those healers that overheals and we lose out on her effective healing. Sayu for me just does not do enough damage, and she does not swirl the opponents to where I would like them to swirl, like Kazuha or like Sucrose. I rather have the affected abilities from Sucrose rather than Sayu. The only thing I see going for Sayu that I wouldn't use on Sucrose is Sayu can roll around really fast and target multiple enemies at once. But even then, I would use Sucrose over Sayu. And with that note, we get on to Sucrose. I think Sucrose is a great A tier pick. She can equip the Viridescent Veneer set very well and can take great use of it. Not as much as Kazuha though, but Sucrose is a great free-to-play Kazuha pick. The Viridescent Veneer set reduces the resistances of enemies swirled within inside it. And she's great in many national team comps. Next, we got Child. I think Child is a great DPS unit. Overall, I think he's also an entertaining unit. He has a melee stance and a range stance, and I think it takes a lot of skill to figure out what stance to use and what ultimate to use with it. I won't go too in depth with Child, because I have a guide made on him, and you guys can check that out later. But for now, I'm going to keep him the A tier. He has solid scalings and solid damage. Toma, I haven't really played yet. I haven't touched him at all, so I'm going to keep him a C or B tier. Probably C. I just know his shield is probably not as strong as Zhongli, and Diona just provides much more viability than Toma. Next, we got the Anima MC. I'm just going to use the Anima MC as all three Anima, or Geo, and Electro MC. They all together, they're not that great and not that viable. If you get any other characters, I would recommend building them over the Anima MC. If I was to rank the MCs, I would rank it from Geo, Electro, and then Anima. Next, we got Venti. I think Venti is a great S tier option. Grouping enemies up is very important in Genshin Impact Spiral Abyss. If you're trying to get the best times, you want to get the enemies all close together so you can deal damage to them in a giant AoE cluster. He also provides a large amount of energy, and his ultimate cost is very cheap. Next, we got Xiangling. I think Xiangling is a great S tier pick because her Pyronado does so much damage if you pair her with other Hydro characters that can apply Hydro very fast to other opponents. I also have a guide on Xiangling, so I won't go too much in depth with her, but you guys can check that out after the video too. Next, we got Xiao, and of course, Xiao is one of my favorite characters, but I'm not going to be biased on him. I honestly think that he is S tier. He has great AoE damage. Next, we got Xingqiu. I think Xingqiu is great at applying Hydro. He pairs amazing with Xiangling and Hu Tao, and is a solid member in the national team comp. Next, we got Xinyan. I think Xinyan is an okay physical DPS, but I wouldn't rank her anything higher than that. She lacks behind in all the other DPS characters, and probably wouldn't be a build I would recommend. Next, we got Yunfei. I think Yunfei is also a DPS unit that lacks behind other carries. She deals average DPS, but lacks behind in damage compared to other 5 stars. Next up, we got Yoimiya. I think Yoimiya lacks behind against other characters and supports above her. Her DPS output is single target, but does not make up for the DPS loss of other AoE damage dealers. Next, we got Zhongli, and I think Zhongli is a great unit, a great shielder. He has the strongest shield in the game, and his ultimate, with a cheap energy cost, petrifies enemies. And that's about going to wrap it up for my tier list. If you guys got any comments, any disagreements, make sure to leave it in the comment section down below. And I'll get with you guys next time.